for the Bucks, it's one way to make your team instantly historic.
BUCCANEERS, go Bucks!
Welcome to yet another Spanish Pirates Bucket Up Buccaneers podcast. Tom and Jaime in Madrid, and you know what? I'm fully vaccinated, and we don't need these. Can't even get it off. We don't need these anymore.
It's tricky.
Get it out of here. Much better. Whew. And by the way, this is not a prop. This is Jaime's hoodie. It says Super Bowl champions hoodie. It's Pirates booty from a big plunder of a 2021 Super Bowl win. Fired up about. I mean, they have it all going on. There's no reason to not be optimistic. You've been there through the
lows and the even lowers.
Yeah.
And then we rose like a phoenix or whatever.
Yeah. And I'm really fired up for this first one. A lot more planned for you down the road, but what a way to start. Right?
What a way to start for sure. And we have a great guest joining us. We want to talk about, what happened last year and hopefully what will happen this year. No, and
I will mention the U word.
The U as in university, or what kind of U? I'm not sure what you're talking about.
We'll get to that.
I guess we'll find out.
Oh,
hello.
Here we are.
Hey, Greg.
Hey, Greg. Spanish Pirates Bucket Up podcast. Tom and Jaime here, and welcoming a man riding a writer's high these days. Greg Auman's covered the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers for years with the Tampa Times, now for The Athletic, and has a new book out along with Joey Johnston. Tampa Bay, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, unforgettable 2020 championship season. Certainly appreciate you taking a few minutes to come aboard our ship.
Oh, no. Thanks for having me. Glad to be on.
Well, hello, Greg. And again, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you very much. And, hearing about your book, really interested in reading that. And I mean, following the team, obviously you've been following for so many years, but that last season must have been crazy, with all that went on and the perfect ending. Tell us about it, please.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just in the span of a year to go from, having the drought that they had with so many years without a playoff appearance, let alone a playoff win. And then to get Tom Brady as the quarterback here in Tampa. And before the novelty of that had worn off, they're winning and obviously having an incredible postseason like they had this past year. So, yeah, it's neat. And here we are a month away from training camp and them starting again, trying to win another championship here in Tampa.
What details about your book are you most proud of? Like, what is in there that's going to make even the most serious, like Jaime, the most insane Bucs fan go, wow?
Yeah, it's my first book, so I would really need just to be involved in something like that. It's the kind of year you want to have a book written about. So Joey and I have been friends for a long time here in Tampa. He's covered sports here in Tampa a lot longer than I have. Got to work together on it, and it's got just about everything from the season. You got stories on every single game, both every game of the regular season, and then obviously every game of the 4 wins in the playoffs, going to Washington and New Orleans and Green Bay. And then finishing at home here in Tampa. We got features on all the big players, Brady and Gronkowski and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and then on defense with Levante David and Jason Pierre-Paul and all those types. So really need to have it come together. First time I really had a chance to do something like that. So I really enjoyed it. Just as a first-time author, I've written a lot over the years and had times where books, you have to kind of be in the right place at the right time. And I got lucky that way.
What was the point? Because we've heard so much, like from that bye week, afterwards they didn't lose any game. Did you feel that was there a change, or was more of a gradual they were getting to know each other?
Yeah, and we had kind of thought going into the year that if they could find momentum at the end of the year, they had a really easy Final 4 games. So I mean, yeah, you go back to that bye week, they're 7-5. They're right on the cusp of the playoffs period just to get into the playoffs. And they'd lost to good teams. I mean, you lose to the Rams and the Chiefs. There's no shame in that. But, Kansas City had really come out of that first quarter was pretty rough, the first game against Kansas City. So had things not turned around the way they did, it could have gone in a very different direction. I think having the last 3 games be the Falcons, the Lions, and the Falcons, it kind of let this team find itself. It certainly gave them a dose of confidence and optimism to be able to win as thoroughly as they did those last 2 games. And then from there, I mean, they're a team that, I think because of COVID, being on the road wasn't such a big deal this past season. You didn't have to worry about, huge crowds. Obviously, Green Bay can be a lot tougher than it was when they went there. So I think that helped them, just the odd circumstances of this season. Winning 3 road games in the playoffs is not easy under any circumstances, but it's easier when the crowd isn't quite as big a factor as it is most playoff games in the NFL. So yeah, that definitely was the pinch point, was that bye week. Kind of lucky to get a week 13 bye. The Bucs are used to, much earlier byes. That's the kind of off week that kind of sets you up for a championship, especially if you're not going to get a bye week. Tom Brady's used to a week 18 bye. He's used to having that first week of the playoffs off to rest. So since they didn't have that, this is probably the next best thing.
And certainly doing it at home has never happened before, may never happen again, winning a Super Bowl on your home field. Then the boat parade, crazy iconic, Brady's greatest completion of the season. And he was hammered.
Yeah, that was great. That was, in terms of unique experiences, I got 2 of them in 5 months. The Tampa Bay Lightning
right.
won the Stanley Cup, and they had a boat parade right in the middle of the Bucs season. This was like the end of September. Just a neat experience. This was a team that didn't really get to have the same interaction with its fans. Like we said, they probably had as big a crowd for that parade as they had for a lot of those early home games. So I think for them, it was a chance to kind of, see the fans up closer than they had most of the season, and definitely memorable. They can win another championship. They have another boat parade. I think this will always be neat because it was the first one.
Absolutely. And I'm sure we will be hearing stories coming out from that parade for years to come.
Sure no, it's funny.
Things happen that we never know.
My favorite story, everybody talks about the Brady toss with the Lombardi trophy and Cam Brate catching it. But my favorite story in that is that somebody told me that by maritime law in Florida, if the trophy had been dropped and sank to the bottom of the Hillsborough River, it becomes like public domain, where if anybody whoever gets it first can have the Lombardi trophy.
Wow.
I think that would have been amazing, is to have this awesome. Divers racing to bottom. No one really knows how deep it is there. Someone said they thought it was 70 feet deep just because it's dredged in the canal there in the middle of the Hillsborough River there. But yeah, that would have been fun.
Let's talk about a little bit of what, looking forward now to next season, and a little bit what happened during free agency. I think, Jason Light, I've been an advocate of him for the last few years. The results are there, obviously. He brought every starter back, plus some key backups, all the coaches as well. Yeah. And I think that's huge, So what else can they do?
Yeah, no, it sets the bar really high for them having a chance to repeat. It's really hard to get back-to-back championships in the NFL. Nobody's done it since 2004, which was Brady, which helps. But to bring everybody back like that is really unprecedented. They had a lot of free agents, didn't have a lot of salary cap room, so there's a little bit of that salary cap magic and borrowing from future seasons to kind of finance a really special opportunity here. They have everybody back. In theory, they should be a much better team this year. Just adding some key pieces, they really didn't lose anyone of consequence. I think they were really fortunate last year to be as healthy as they were. So It has to start there. But if they have the same luck with injuries here in 21, they'll have, hopefully they'll have Vita Vea healthy for the entire year. Hopefully OJ Howard can stay healthy for the entire year. They've added some small pieces in terms of outside newcomers that have come in and rookies. I don't think they'll have a whole lot of impact from newcomers, but especially seeing the changes around the NFC South, this should be their division to take now. I think that's every expectation. And if this is a Bucs team that wins their division, now that means a home playoff game, which they really didn't have, at least until the Super Bowl last year. It could mean a bye in the first round of the playoffs, which is certainly what Tom Brady has known as his more traditional path to the Super Bowls compared to what he did this past year. So I think this is a team that should be a lot better. The challenge is going to be how motivated they are, how able they are, in January to find the same magic and make another run on a championship.
Right. Well, you've covered Brady for a year. We've all seen him for years, and maybe the most dull press conference guy, except now on HBO, and I'll just read the quote. I'm sure you've seen it, talking about what he tries to say in post. I just always try to play it super flat. from a strategic standpoint. I never want to give away what we're doing. I usually say the opposite. If they have a expletive corner, I'll be like, that guy's unbelievable. I don't even know how to complete balls over him. And in my mind, I'm thinking I'm going right at that MF all day because I don't want to give them anything. I mean, it's finally honesty.
Yeah, no, it's nice to see. I think most of us knew that Brady was very careful and measured and rehearsed in what he says to us and what he says to the public. Almost to a vice. I think he's come out of his shell a little bit here in Tampa compared to what he had kind of under the tight constraints of Patriot land up in New England. So yeah, it's amusing to hear him say this stuff. I think he said that 90% of what he says, he doesn't mean, which is probably true for a lot of people in public life.
Right.
It's funny because now I feel like when we ask him questions this fall, and he's like, oh, we got to face so-and-so. They're so good. I want to be like, is this part of the 90%? Am I right in assuming that you don't mean any of the nice things you're saying about the people you're about to face? I think it's needed that obviously HPO there with the shop got him a little bit more comfortable and off the cuff. And it's fun to see that. Like I said, I think he's probably loosened up a little bit as a result of being here in Florida with a more laid back coach in Bruce Arians.
Exactly.
And he's just getting more comfortable in his surroundings, probably.
Yeah. I just want to jump ahead. I know you touched on the draft very briefly. Tryon is interesting. I hope his knee's better. I love Kyle Trask. My wife's a Gator. So, that's long-term. Maybe Darden has a chance to be special down the road, but we need to jump ahead to the schedule. It's among the easiest, at least 5 national nighttime games. That's unheard of for Tampa. They raised the banner in the opener with the Cowboys. When you look at that schedule, what jumps out at you?
There's no impossible games. The Bucs probably going to be favored in all 17 games.
Right.
Until they prove otherwise. So they're tough games. I mean, they go to LA and they go to New England in back-to-back weeks. So that's right there is really daunting.
You mentioned the game of the season there.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I think that'll be prices are like over $1,000 for tickets to get to that game. It'll be very much at least the most talked about regular season game in the NFL, just because all people have known of Tom Brady is the Patriots. But now he goes back home there as a defending Super Bowl champ. I think the Patriots will certainly be better than they were this past season, whether it's still Cam Newton as the quarterback or Mac Jones there by week 4. But those two back-to-back are probably the toughest stretch they'll have. It gets a lot easier. There's a lot of games in the Northeast. They're at Philly. They're at Washington. They're at the Jets. They're at New England. Some of those will be colder than others. There's not a ton of really cold games they're going to have to deal with. But the expectation of this team is that they'll have the division won. So late in the season, we don't know if they're playing for seeding. You don't know what will be locked up when. But this could be a very different season compared to 7-5 with 4 games to go this past year.
Right.
So, not that I'm looking for one weak point, but where do you see, what's the one thing or many things, I hope not, but that can derail that season, apart obviously from injuries, no one can account for that.
The number one thing is staying healthy. If Tom Brady gets hurt, this is a very different team. There's a lot of weapons on offense that would make it easier for whoever steps in. But it has to start with keeping Tom Brady healthy. I think they bring back the entire offensive line, which has to help. I think just everybody being on the same page in the second year on offense has to help as well. So I don't think it's a major concern. It's just something it's something they were able to dodge completely last year. And Tom Brady, to his credit, the guy's going to be 44 years old. He hasn't missed a game due to injury since 2008, which is just an incredible run. It's crazy. So no, I would start there. I mean, defensively, they need to be more consistent. This wasn't a very good defensive team at times this past year. I think they ended up playing great football, and we'll start where they left off. But if you go back to November, there was a run there where it seemed like every team's number one receiver was able to go to town for a while. And they either got by and they won it, or they fell behind and didn't win it. So, I mean, you think about what Cooper Kupp was able to do against this team and what Tyreek Hill was able to do against this team. There's areas they can get a lot better. I think we have, we're going to see the same cast of characters. It doesn't mean they'll play the same way. It could be they're that much better because they have such a familiarity of being in scheme for another year. But, I mean, you're going to have a team that maybe 40 of those guys out of 53 won a ring this past year. So wherein that was the overriding motivation for most everybody in that room last year, getting that first ring, getting a chance. I mean, Levante David, Mike Evans, Will Goldstone, those guys have never been in the playoffs. And now, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Tom Brady has shown you can be very motivated just to win a second and third and so on. But I don't know that. Not everybody's wired that way. So it'll be fun to see how well he can get them to follow his lead in being motivated for another championship.
I mean, I can't help to just be positive towards this season because, like you said, no, and the both the defense and the offense, they were trending upwards, and that's the key there, you know. And like Clyde Christen said, like, you know, we need maybe 8 more weeks to get to our peak offensively. I mean, so, and this leads us, right, Tom, to
the U word. Nobody wants to say it. It's been uttered. Mahomes said it recently, and I know the Bucs are going to be asked about it. But this is, you know, Brady could do it with this team. It is a realistic expectation. You mentioned they're going to be favored in every game. Injuries obviously play a role in all of that, but that would be something cool to follow for you.
Oh yeah, I mean, and once once you get to about 6-0, it's going to be, you know, if you're the last undefeated teams left in the league, it becomes something that people are asking about every week. And especially if they get through those, you know, they win at the Rams, if they win at the Patriots, there's not a ton of impossible games. You know, where if they're healthy, if they're riding the confidence of not having lost since whatever it was, week 12 of last year, it's the one thing Tom Brady hasn't done. I mean, he went 16-0 once with the Patriots and lost to the Giants in the Super Bowl. So the idea for him of, you know, it'll be 17 games now. So now it's a 20-0 season. You know, it'd be the first 17-0 season and a chance obviously for something a lot bigger than that. So that is another thing that I think can be motivating. If Tom Brady hasn't done something, there's not many things you can say, Tom, you still haven't done this. That's something he can say he hasn't done. And everybody in the room is there with him. So I think that'll be a motivation. They're a very grounded, focused team. So they're not out there thinking, 21-0, wow. And they just want to win each game. If you win each game and take care of business each week, when you're done, you can look up and have a record. They're not going to worry too much about undefeated seasons. They want to win the division. Once they've won the division, they want to get a bye and they want to get the best playoff seeding. And then they're not going to look past that next home game. Bruce is pretty good about keeping these guys narrowly focused on what's immediately in front of them.
That's awesome.
But you can bet whatever you want that Tom wants to do what those guys down in Miami do every year. Get together, you know,
with Gronk every year instead of calling Larry Zonka and popping the champagne in week 10 when the
how cool would that be, man? And you can you know, follow that every year.
That's a chance to put a single team in history. Obviously Brady, he's got that taken care of for the most part, but for the Bucs, it's one way to make your team instantly historic.
We've come to the end. Thank you so much for joining us. You're an honorary Spanish pirate. Jaime has come up with Amanissimo. Thank
you. I've been to Spain before. I was in Barcelona. We went. This is probably 15 years ago. Nice. But loved it. Love your country. Would love to go back. So someday, hopefully, I'm there in Spain again.
You're at home anytime. For sure, man.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Okay.
No, thank you.
Well
guys for
done.
having me,
At Greg Auman on Twitter is a great follow, and thanks for the support. Good luck.
Thanks so much,
guys.
Greg.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Be well.
Take care. So Greg Auman with us, great guy. We got a lot of good insight with him. Got some laughs.
I love the story about the river. Who knew that it would be public property?
Unbelievable.
The trophy. Yeah. That was great.
Like I said, I mean, we'll have stories about that parade for years, man.
Yeah. It's great to start sort of kick off the Spanish Pirates look ahead. I know we'll be doing some more of these certainly as the season approaches. It certainly gets my blood flowing to have a guy who's right there giving us those insights from way back when all the way through. I like the idea of him saying, Tom, was that 90% BS that you just told us? The press conferences?
No, he's not sure.
Yeah, it's hysterical.
No, but for sure it's going to be so looking forward to this season, right? I mean, last season was, I don't think we can match it, but
no,
it can be pretty close.
But the only thing, like the COVID aspect made it a little bit, if they had won in New Orleans with the crazy crowd and in Green Bay the way they did with the crazy crowd, it still means a little more, but the way the whole thing, I never trade a second of it, and winning on their own field again, that'll probably never happen again. Yeah. And we are so fired up.
Like Tom's rehearsal with the team, and we see how we, showing everybody else how it's done, and now we do it for real in front of everybody. Super Bowl champs. That's
And
right.
you know, you could come get yours soon. I'm gonna sell it on the street.
No, don't do it. I'm coming for it, man. I'm coming for
Okay.
it.
Again, I salute you.
I tip my
Thank you.
cap. And
Arr.
go Bucks.